Hey, it's Mike. I just want to say thanks, as usual, for checking out another episode of the podcast. In this episode, I interview Ben Coomber, who is a popular nutritionist and trainer and coach, and he does a lot of seminars actually. And he has a very popular podcast. I think he's actually number one in the UK for health and fitness on iTunes. And he also has a rather extensive, kind of advanced learning program called Body Type Nutrition Academy, which I didn't actually know. I knew that he had it. I just didn't know that he has programs ranging from 2 months to like 2 years. And he's also an author and coming out with a line of supplements that I don't know too much about yet, but I'm curious to see what he's going to be doing on that front. Because I like Ben. He's a good guy. He's science-based. He gets good results. He's worked with hundreds and hundreds of people personally, and probably actually worked with thousands. I don't even know. He's been around for a while, and he knows his stuff. And it's always fun to talk to him. Plus, he's a Brit, and British people are just cool. I just like talking to him. They're always so chill and so nice, and I don't know. I like British people. So that's Ben, and let's get to the interview. Hey Ben, thanks for coming on my show. I was on your show last time, and I got hopefully your people liked it. I got some good feedback. I've gotten emails from guys. Hey, I heard you on Ben's show. I like what you had to say. Seems like you have a pretty cool crowd.
We do, and I try and get a lot of feedback from people. I try and say, look, tell us what you think, what you like. Tag us in on Twitter, start a conversation. Because ultimately, if you don't get to talk about this stuff with the people that are sharing the knowledge, then it kind of feels like you're not engaged in the process. And the podcast can be a bit of a one-way street sometimes.
Yeah. It's it's kind of, if I understood you correctly on that, where like a lot of people that you're saying that are. I mean, I don't hold myself up as any sort of guru or even much of an expert. I mean, what I'm talking about, the majority of this stuff is very basic, very simple. I'm not somebody like, you have guys like Eric Cressy and Gentlecore and Contreras, and those guys are on another level for sure. But where even these basics, the stuff that we talked about and that I'm constantly talking about and writing about, a lot of people are not talking about them because they're just kind of doing their thing. And you find that is that what you're saying? Did I understand you correctly?
Well, yeah, and we're here.
The majority of like the books and the best-selling books, they're talking about the fat-burning principles of fat-burning foods and all that bullshit. You know what I mean?
It's just like, well, a podcast is, we're standing here talking to people and people are just listening. And sometimes people just don't go, do you know what, I'd really like to go and engage with these people. They almost feel like they can't sometimes. So I'm so active of reminding people, look, come and talk to us. We'll talk back on Twitter. Let's get a conversation going, because otherwise you do pitch yourself as this kind of expert guy. And after all, we're just people. We're just people trying to help other people and engage in conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I misunderstood you, but I agree with that. No, it's very true. That's also why I've myself intentionally kept that very open in terms of emails and still responding to people's emails. And I intend on always allotting time for that, just because I think it's the right thing to do. I don't know. I think like it would have been helpful for me back when I was just like reading bodybuilding magazines and doing stupid workouts and trying all these dumb diets and shit. It would have been nice to be able to just email somebody and been like, hey, so I've been reading these magazines. What do you think about this? And have that person respond and be like, nah, it's all bullshit. Here, go read these few things. Go read this book and you're good. That would have been nice.
Oh, definitely. I think if we put ourselves out there as people that others can learn from, we need to accept that people will want to ask us questions. We need to kind of be available for that. There is a limit to that, of course, but
sure,
it's kind of our duty in a way.
I agree. You know that I think I got this from, there was like this book that talked about the habits and routines of all different types of people throughout history, creatives, and ranging from like artists to business people to inventors to whatever. And it was Charles Darwin throughout his entire life would spend a large portion of every night answering letters from just readers and just people, not peers necessarily, just random people out there. That was something he did consistently throughout his life, though. Like when he was Charles Darwin, and now he was, so he didn't like, once he made it, quote unquote, be like, I don't give a shit what people say anymore. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time with these people. He made a point of, and that was like handwriting letters, of course, for a few hours, I believe it was, every night for his entire life. He kept that up.
Wow. If he can do that, we can do a couple of
I tell
emails.
myself that sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah.
where I have a lot of emails, and I'm like, hey, fucking Charles Darwin did it, and Neil Gaiman, the famous writer.
Mhm.
He also, I was listening to an interview with him where he was saying that he always does that as well, right? So he's always like answering emails and on social media, engaging with his fans and his readers and stuff. And but it got bad where he was saying like he was spending, he felt like he was almost like a full time email answer and part time writer, where he was spending like 5-6 hours a day doing email, and then by the time he would like, okay, he needs to write, he needs to get that next book done, he would feel like, I mean, it can be kind of mentally draining to answer emails
Sure.
for 6 hours. But again, he still did it though, and he actually had to tell himself like, all right, I need to chill out, I need to cut this back, or I'm just like not going to get my work done. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I think that's pretty cool when I hear stuff like that. So let's get on to the point of why you're here. So first, we'd come over a couple topics that I thought would be cool to talk about, and one is you have, we could say it's not really a war. It's just you have these different schools of thought in terms of dieting. So you have paleo, primal type stuff, very, very popular right now. Gluten-free, very popular right now. If it fits your macros, or flexible dieting is popular in the fitness world, and it's gaining a little bit of mainstream popularity. I don't know if you saw, I think CBS or someone, do you see that? It came out on flexible dieting, and it made the rounds, and I think they were talking with Lane Norton in it. So Norton was just talking about flexible dieting, and et cetera, et cetera. And what's your take on these? You could say they're fad diets. I mean, they kind of are, although some seem to be here to stay. But
Well, I think Lane's done a brilliant job at flying the flag for flexible dieting, especially in the population that he kind of works in, bodybuilding. People can easily get very orthorexic about that style of eating, both on a healthy and unhealthy level. Orthorexia is just an obsession of essentially the details of what you perceive as healthy, and we all package nutrition in different ways as healthy. If you ask one guy what is healthy, the next guy will say something slightly different. It's all our own interpretation. Now,
how would you define healthy food? Like, what does that mean to you?
I think straight off the bat, I describe as a healthy food as something that was grown or swam or was reared, is essentially one single ingredient food, or that food was closely made from those ingredients.
So minimally processed.
Yeah. And it has all the constituents that it's meant to. If you look at a piece of steak, it's all still there. It has the protein and everything. It hasn't been screwed up by someone in a lab. Now, I suppose the thing with all these diets is that people, can become cult-like and really invest themselves heavily in these diets. And while I appreciate that people want to kind of really believe and follow and buy into something, I think every diet has its pros and its cons, and people just need to be aware and critically stand back and go, right, logically, what are the pros from this diet? We'll look at the paleo diet, and there is some incredibly valuable information from the paleo world. Single ingredient foods, look at inflammatory foods, etc.
High protein dieting.
Exactly. We've breached the whole gluten-free thing with them, dairy. But there's limitations to that, right? There's people that have taken that to the extreme and gone, no one should eat gluten, no one should eat dairy, no one should eat a baked bean. And just like, well, hang on a second.
Or potato or something. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. And so people have taken it to that extreme, but people haven't been critical enough to stand back and go, well, does that sound rational? Does it sound logical? So they'll read an article, they'll think, oh my God, this guy says baked beans are bad. I'm never going to eat baked beans on toast again because it's got gluten and beans.
Yeah.
So I don't mind people, following a certain setup, but they still have to see where the diet's limitations are and be critical for themselves.
It can be hard though, because sometimes you can read an article or read the books or on let's say paleo or primal that through it's very easy to take if you have a half of a brain to make a pseudoscientific argument for anything. You can misinterpret research. You can cite studies that got disproven later that you don't talk about. There's a lot of ways to do that. So just to stand out. It can be hard for people if that's their first entry. You know what I mean? If they're like, I've heard about paleo, let me read this, and it can be real convincing. Like you could read a guy like Mark Sisson, whose work I do like. I mean, Mark is a super smart dude, a really good writer. Like I admire him just as a person, but you know, and his primal thing is kind of like paleo light, so I can appreciate that. But, you know, you could read certain things that he writes and come away convinced like, oh shit, this is the way. Like there's no other, like, why would I do anything else?
Oh, definitely. And I think, you know, we're in a gifted position now because you and me know a lot. We've kind of been there. We've been through, like, especially even more with you, the training, like you've been through all these different workouts, systems, that kind of stuff. Me with the nutrition, you know, I've followed paleo, I've followed fasting, I've followed all sorts of stuff. And at the time, you know, I bought into it to a degree because, you know, the writers that were saying this stuff were so convincing. But I still think I wasn't being critical enough. I wasn't standing back and viewing it with a bigger picture because I was just interested in my end goal. And I got this diet and attached it to my goal and go, well, if I want to achieve this goal, I have to do this diet. And I had my blinkers on, I had tunnel vision because all I was focusing on was my goal. But I didn't stand back and go, you know, look at the variables. So I understand people's frustrations. We live in a world of information and misinformation. But for people, I just want to say, look, take 5 minutes, stand back, put your thinking cap on, and don't just jump straight back to the news feed on Facebook and look at the next cat falling off a wall in between articles. It's just being aware.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think also there's something to be said for, this is something at least I try to do when I get into anything really, if I'm going to, whether it be a hobby or whatever, is try to first establish the most important information in terms of principles, and try not to go to the original source of, you know, so in this case it would be, it's risky to just rely on someone else's presentation of research or interpretation of research. If you just read a book, I mean, that person has they have something they're trying to, usually a philosophy or agenda of some kind to sell you. And then it's very easy to mold that, as opposed to going and looking at the research yourself. So like in terms of energy balance, for example, if we're talking about diet, that was one of the first things when I was like, decided to actually educate myself on dieting. One of the first things that made sense to me, like this is a fundamental principle of dieting. This is, you know, we have 100+ years of metabolic research here. I can go read these papers for myself, and I trust, you know, a review of 70 years of metabolic research and what that paper has to say on energy balance more than I trust some random dude who says that, you know, I don't care about his supposed credentials. He has stuff to sell and he says energy balance is a hoax. You know what I mean? So that, at least that was kind of when I first started looking into it. Like it's more work that way and it's tougher, but I feel that it pointed me in the right direction. And I was able to then go, all right, these are the things that are most important. These are the things that are less important, and judge things accordingly. But
as we've become good practitioners, though, we've been able to do that. And for a layman to read research, man, that stuff's tough. You know, I still struggle with a lot of research. I'm like, I just don't know what those numbers mean.
True.
So it can be tough. So you have to rely on people's interpretation. I think, you know, the industry's been gifted a little bit by the work of Examine. I think Examine works fantastic.
Examine.com, just so the listeners know. Yeah. Great resource.
Yeah, it's something we actually provide to all our students. We pay for the UK license, that all our students get that so that they can keep up with the research. But, you know, these are guys are going, but this is what creatine is, what it means, and this is what the research actually says.
Yep.
And to have that in our industry right now with zero bias is a gift.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Yeah, huge resource. I check things on it all the time myself, and yeah, I'm a big fan of Examine and, you know, all the guys behind it and what they're doing. So that's paleo. That's primal. So what would you say are the upside and downside of something like flexible dieting, which is, you know, a lot of people think that is, like you said, they can, well, I'll let you take it. So let's talk about that.
So, well, flexible dieting for me is a massive pro. It allows people to understand whether they can bring in quote unquote bad foods into their diet. Mm-hmm. So, you know, with classically, especially in the paleo primal eat natural environment, been almost scared to eat some foods. It's like, you need to eat this and only this. And if you slip up, you're a bad person. And then, that's when these binge cycles come in because people feel that, oh, screw
Repent,
it.
shame.
Yeah. Well, I've eaten a donut now, so I might as well spend all weekend eating donuts, and I'll maybe get back on my diet on Monday.
Yeah.
So, the kind of science, as you mentioned, of energy in, energy out is largely going to control body composition. So we need to take faith in that and say, right, I need to get my calories right if I'm concerned about body composition or a goal of losing or gaining weight. And within that calorie amount, there is a certain amount that I'm willing to forego for processed foods. And I usually say that should be 10%. I know a lot of people will say 20%. I think that's a little bit high because I'm a big fan of micronutrition and really getting as much in you as possible.
Yeah, so I agree, especially if calorie intake, like someone's in a calorie deficit, and let's say it's a girl that, she's not very big to start out with, and if she's going to be getting 20% of her daily calories from shit food, that can actually be quite a bit.
Exactly. So it allows people to go, all right, okay, I'm going out on a Friday night. I'm eating 3,000 calories. I want 1,000 of those calories to be on pizza. It's not ideal, but I'm still going to be able to stick towards my goals. And it allows people to go, right, yeah, cool, I can do that. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and look the same. So there's a certain amount of rules that keep, in track or on track when you want to break the rules, quote unquote. So I think the perfect diet for a lot of people that are just want to be healthy, live longer, look good, is probably a whole foods diet where you probably don't need to track your calories and macronutrients. Eat a decent amount of protein, get loads of fruits and veggies, balance your carbs and fats, how it makes you feel good. Now, as soon as you're an individual that is concerned about body composition, you want muscles, you want abs, you want to be lean, then you need to understand the numbers. You can't get the cover model physique, or it's rare to, without understanding the numbers. And it's at that point where you need to go, right, well, I need to eat a full whole foods diet, but I need to understand my calories, my proteins, my fats, my fiber, and hopefully my micronutrients as well. So it definitely depends on the severity of the goal and how geeky you get with your nutrition and the numbers.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just on that point, even of like with cheat meals, quote unquote, or whatever, it's very easy. Just this is simple little tip just for listeners. I've talked about this before, but if you're gonna go out and you're gonna eat a bunch of food, and what I do personally is I just save up a lot of those days' calories. So like I'll just kind of eat protein throughout the day, probably have some vegetables at lunch or whatever, but I'm saving the majority of my carbs and fat for my dinner, so I can go eat 2,000 or 3,000 calories and really enjoy myself if that's what I want to do, and really have no difference in terms of not that you can even store it's hard to, if you're going to, let's say, to gain a pound of fat in a day, it's hard to eat 35-ish 100 calories over expenditure. And a lot of that's going to have to be from fat. It's hard to do that as it is, but just as a tip for people that, especially if you're dieting and you're lean and you don't want to set yourself back at all, it's an easy way to, you can just save those calories. I do that, depending on what I'm going to do.
It's exactly the same as what I do. We have Nando's in the UK. I like a Nando's. I went there last night with my girlfriend for dinner. I knew that a full platter with chips and stuff was going to be 1,800 calories. Yeah. I just saved it. I ate lighter. I ate 2 light meals during the day. Yep. High protein, low fat, low carb. And then I just nailed it at night.
Yeah, I tend to do, I like to eat larger meals at night anyway, so I tend to do that as it is. I like it for working as well. I like not having a lot of food in me, because you're probably the same way, I'm sure, because we have to think and do, like, you know what I mean. And I like that when I'm not, you eat those large meals, and there's definitely some lethargy that comes with it, I think.
Definitely. And you want to carry on working.
Yeah.
Like eating a big meal takes a lot of time.
True, actually.
And you got to cook it as well.
Yeah.
So if I can graze during the day and then feed at night, it definitely helps with my work pattern for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, I mean, I think most people listening are going to know this, but there's no downside to eating. I don't care how many carbs, I don't care what you eat, when you eat it. There's no downside to that. I eat on average, just for the listeners, I'll eat maybe about 250 to 300 grams of carbs at like 10 p.m. at night. Cause I'm doing these baked oatmeal dishes, which I'm like basically obsessed with at this point, cause they're so good. But that's just because that's how I like to eat. So
sure.
It's not like you're going to gain fat by doing that, as long as your numbers are right, like what Ben's saying.
Definitely.
Cool. So I think that's good on that. Let's move on to this next point here, which is you want to talk about, which is people that are under recovering and hitting their training in life at 80% all of the time. So, what are your insights on that?
Sure. Well, I do an awful lot of public speaking seminars. I do a lot of seminars for trainers, and I always sit in the room. These are people that have come to listen to me to learn more about nutrition, training, lifestyle, etc. And I'll look into the eyes of people, and most people, I'd say at 80% of the room, usually, you can just see that they're just not quite well slept. They're not quite recovering enough. They haven't got the vitality they want. You can just see it in their eyes. And because we're individuals that are always chasing a goal, we're always trying to think about the next training program, the next day's training, nutrition, our goals. And while that's fantastic, sometimes we don't stand back and think about the rest of our life and how this is affecting the quality of our life as well. Because after all, we get fit, stay fit, look good to enhance our life.
Right.
You know, outside of fitness, bodybuilding, whatever you want to call it, we all have a life. We're only in the gym 5 or 6 hours a week, etc. So, you know, I'm always questioning people. I'm saying, are you going into your training are you going into the gym at 80, 90%? And there's so many people that are going into the gym and they're just not quite fresh. They're not 100% there. They're trying to take a really strong pre-workout just to feel with it and put the reps in, the time in. So for me, it's about people stepping back and going, well, maybe you're actually in the gym too much. Can you actually recover from it? Is your sleep consistent? Do you get a lot of bad night sleeps? Do you wake up during the night? Are you at your desk at work or on the site if you're a physical labourer or whatever? Are you there just not quite with it? And it's probably because we're just doing all too much. And I really appreciate that people are pushing towards their goal. They're trying to do the next thing. But you've got to look after your health. Because when that's in order, that's when you can push hard with your training. Like I've just taken a week off. I went away for a long weekend with my girlfriend, got my shit together. Monday, I was absolutely chomping at the bit. Monday, I was just so ready for the gym. Whereas 10 days ago, I wasn't. I was like, I've got to get this workout done. I'm looking forward to it. And I pushed it a bit too hard. So I just want people to stand back because I hate those days where I go into the gym at 80, 90%. It's just not as fun.
Yeah.
You can't feel your muscles as well. You can't drive as well. You can't hit that PR. It's all affected. And it's because I think we're just not paying attention to the kind of lifestyle and recovery factors outside the nuts and bolts of training and nutrition.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I've experienced that myself. I usually, depending on how heavy I'm training and depending on what I'm doing, I usually don't take a full week off. What I'll do is I'm normally training Monday through Friday. So it comes down to 4 to 8 weeks, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a lot of really heavy stuff, it's probably closer to 4, but I'll take off. I'll probably get in there on Wednesday or Thursday, and I'll do a 2 or 3 day lighter, kind of just a deload, like maybe push-pull legs or an upper lower if it's just 2 days. But it's not super heavyweight. It's just practicing, working on the movements, and as much as I kind of don't like doing it, it's not like it's fun. Like I'm driving to the gym to do this little weak ass workout that is just whatever. I like training hard and training heavy. I found it super necessary though, because if I don't, I just like what you're saying. The workouts become harder and harder, and I don't like them. My dislike for them grows larger and larger. And so, because I hear from people that have that mentality, like I don't want to take a week off. I haven't taken a week off in 5 months. Why do I feel like shit? And they're in a calorie deficit. I'm like, that's why. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of a deload, and I get, I do it sometimes, but a lot of the time I just say to people, because most people like to go in the gym and they just like to push. Yeah. It's very hard to go in the gym and train at 70, 80% if you have that kind of mindset. So a lot of the time I just say to people, look, just take a week off. And the reason why I do it myself is I usually tie it into like a break away. Maybe I take some time out to go do some gardening because I haven't done that for 4 months, or it's a new book and I want to spend more time reading it. So it allows me to flex to my other interests and go out and kind of do some other stuff. Because, in a normal day, once you've worked, you've been to the gym, you've spent an hour or two with your other half, you've done some jobs, that's kind of your day. And a lot of the time it doesn't actually leave that much time for your hobbies. and I have a lot of hobbies, and kind of that break allows me to go, do you know what? I'm going to spend a whole week doing my hobby, whatever that might be. So I think
that's a good point. That's a good point.
People in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I know how that is too, where I'll just get working so much. Sometimes I'll look and I'll be like, I don't do anything. I don't have any, like I play a little golf on the weekend, but yeah, that's kind of around working. So sometimes I'll realize that like, I take time to read, so that's good. But that speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to the next point here, and this is overconsumption of caffeine and relying on it, which is fun. We were just talking about this before the podcast, so I'm curious on your take on this.
Yeah, I think
I love caffeine.
Mate, who doesn't like caffeine? Come on, but it's a modern social drug.
Mm-hmm.
It's got, and even more so in America, more so than the UK. I think everywhere you go, you've got like refillable coffee cups. Coffee's just like the thing you do. You have it at breakfast. You have it. Yeah, exactly. It's all day, and we're putting an excitatory agent in our bloodstream for literally 16 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And people are sitting there wondering why they can't sleep. While when they take their pre-workout, it doesn't work as well as they thought it would. Yeah. All this stuff, and
I'll hear from people like that sometimes, because with my stuff, they'll be like, I didn't feel like, and then to find out their normal caffeine intake is like a gram a day. I'm like, well, that's probably why you didn't feel the caffeine in the pre-workout.
Exactly. All right. And apart from, my original comments, we're all performance-minded individuals. When I go in the gym, I want to kill it. And I want that caffeine, pre-workout bolus to work really well for me. So the more sensitive I am to caffeine, the less I have in my blood. When I take that pre-workout, bam, it's going to really, really work. But it's not going to work if I've already got 200 milligrams constantly circulating in my bloodstream. Most people don't sleep properly. They're never quite mentally on the ball. So I'm a real big proponent of a kind of minimum caffeine lifestyle. A lot of people have their mental energy as a result of their caffeine. They don't actually know how food makes them feel. Like if they ate breakfast, how does it actually make you feel all the way to lunch? Well, most people don't know, because that energy has been driven by caffeine.
Right.
So it's a kind of a modern drug, and I'm a big fan of getting people to just realize how other factors in their lifestyle make them feel.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause especially sleep. Like if you don't, we all know how we feel on a bad night's sleep. The next day just sucks. Mm-hmm. So what do? You get a bad night's sleep, you wake up the next day, shit, I've slept crap, I need more caffeine, you take more on board.
And then you sleep shitty again,
and you just get into this massive cycle of never feeling yourself. And that sucks.
Yeah. No, I personally, I don't have much experience with that, because like I was talking about before we recorded, my body processes caffeine very quickly. So I'll have a couple hundred milligrams and it'll get me going. I'll notice a difference for maybe about an hour, and then I just feel normal again. And I can go a day without caffeine or with caffeine, because the effects are just so transient. It doesn't really make a difference for my day. It's more like for that hour that I'm working out, I feel something, and by the time I'm at the office, I just feel the same as I would have if I didn't work out in terms of caffeine. You know what I mean? But when I see intake, I wrote an article about this a bit ago, so I did a bit of research on it, and from what seemed to be sensible to me, and just reviewing a lot of literature on caffeine, that the general kind of across the board, if you keep your intake at or below 400 milligrams a day, and it's also, I believe it was recommended that you reduce that occasionally as well, and ideally reduce it to nothing, then there are no health risks associated with that. Whereas you start getting in some people, I know that there are definitely instances where some people could go as high as 600 to 800 milligrams a day with no, at least negative effects observed in the research. But that was not the average person. The average person that's over 600-800 plus milligrams a day, it's not healthy, and in time it could become a problem.
It excites blood pressure, heart rate. So if you're predisposed to all this kind of stuff, it's not going to lead to a positive outcome. Yeah. The funny thing is yes, coffee drinkers do live longer, usually about 5 to 6 years longer. But it's nothing to do with the caffeine. It's everything to do with the antioxidants that are found in coffee. So you could get the same from a good organic decaf. It actually pains me to talk about American coffee because I know how bad the coffee is that you drink. And that's why
I hate
everyone
coffee. I
drinks it.
actually wish I liked it. I hate the taste. It's
Oh,
disgusting.
really?
I fucking
Oh.
hate it. I'm actually kind of jealous when I hear coffee drinkers like talk about their deep love for coffee and how enjoyable it is. Like I don't get that experience from any, like I'd have to eat, like a couple donuts or something to get that type of like, oh my God.
See, I have people around my house. People come around, for a coffee drink, and I say to people, what do you usually drink coffee-wise? I'm like, and we start talking about caffeine. I'm like, right, let me make you amazing decaf, and I'll make and you won't want to put sugar in it. You won't want to put milk in it. And every time people are like, oh my God, this is really nice. I'm like, yeah, that's because you drink shit coffee.
I wish I could like coffee. I've tried it, but even like tiramisu, I don't like. Like just the hint of coffee taste is gross to me.
Oh, wow.
My stupid palate. But I like dark chocolate. Why does that make any sense? They're similar in terms of taste.
Yeah, true. Oh, I love dark chocolate.
I know. Anyways. Yeah, so, all in all, I think I agree. And I think we're speaking to people that there are a lot of caffeine abusers that are listening, no question.
Oh, yes.
So, again, going back to like, if you keep your intake, I know, Ben, you said you do what, 100, 200 milligrams, like that's for your training, and then otherwise.
Yeah, I'll have none in my diet, and then I'll take about 200 milligrams pre-training.
Yeah.
That's me a treat, and then I'm good.
And then on the days you don't train, no caffeine.
Usually no caffeine. If for some reason,
sometimes you're like, I just want a little bit. I want to
do it. I rarely do it. The only time I usually do it is if I'm doing a load of writing and I lock myself away.
Yeah.
I'll take caffeine at a low dose, probably about 80 to 120 milligrams.
Yeah.
And that gives me a real gentle, real clean focus if I don't have that already.
Yeah, same. I like it for writing as well. Do you pair it with theanine, by the way? Have you tried that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It's great.
Theanine is fantastic. This is one reason why I like people drinking things like white tea.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a great combo of caffeine and theanine.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of theanine. It makes a big difference for the listeners. If you try, if you just go 1-to-1 in ratio, so if it's 100 milligrams caffeine, pair it with 100 milligrams of theanine, and I remember the first time, because I have it in my pre-workout matched with the caffeine, where the first time I tried that, I was like, holy shit. I almost felt euphoric. I don't necessarily get that euphoria now, but it's definitely a mood booster, and it gives it a smooth. I think for me, it smooths out I get the caffeine rush or whatever. It's just smoother, no crash, and it noticeably improves mood.
Totally agree. And this is, for me, one reason you get the jitters from a strong coffee. There's no theanine. You have to, and it's great that it's in your pre-workout. 100% recommend that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I like tea as well.
One thing I will just say before people go, oh, actually, I might think about dropping my caffeine intake. Whatever you do, just don't go cold turkey.
Yeah.
If you're drinking 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee a day, if you go cold turkey, you're going to feel like, a
withdrawal,
junkie. Yeah, big withdrawal, big headaches, big low mood. Like, cut it down slowly. Otherwise, you'll feel like you're literally dying.
Good point. Yeah. All right, great. So let's move on to the next point here. The next point, which is, so this is a note from you. So why your results are predicated on your input and reflection on what is going well and what's not.
Yeah. So this kind of topic is probably answering a lot of the kind of questions that we will get on a regular basis as kind of practitioners in the field, as to, people will say to us, why am I not getting results? I followed this, I did that. And again, it's a critical point of, are people standing back and looking at everything that they're doing, rather than, because some people focus so much on, like, let's say they bought one of your workouts. They're focusing so much on the workout and the result of the workout. They're not looking at the input from everything else: lifestyle, recovery, diet, supplements, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And most people focus on that their expectation is predicated just on that, and they're not looking and tracking at the other variables. So people's input of what they're doing will directly have a result on their output, 100%. So if you're putting a lot of effort in 1 or 2 areas and you're not happy with stuff, then you need to match that input with all the other factors that contribute to the results that we promote all the time as coaches.
Mm-hmm.
and you know, we talk so much about real simple things like balance, protein, you know, getting all these basics right. But, you know, and people are bored of listening to it, but people are still not doing it.
True, very true.
So I'm going to keep telling you to do it until you do it, because you're still complaining that you haven't got the results that you expect, but you're not doing the fundamentals. You're not getting a good night's sleep. You're not busting your ass in the gym when you do it. You haven't got your protein intake consistent. Your carbs and fats all over the place. You're cheating too much on, you know, the main bulk of your foods, all this kind of stuff. If you don't get it, don't complain about your results.
Yep. And don't think that some random weird little new thing is gonna preempt that or allow you to, you know, ignore the fundamentals and still get the results that you want, which goes back to some of that fad dieting stuff. Like if you do not understand energy balance and you don't want to and whatever, then it doesn't really matter what diet you do. It'll only maybe work for a bit if it, you know, just means like you're trying to lose weight. And if the diet you try restricts the foods that you like to eat, that you overeat on, yeah, it'll work to a point. But yeah, and that's a very good point. I think it applies to anything really. Is like anything, I don't know, that I've gotten into, that I've gotten good at and had any success with, is it's always come back to the fundamentals. The vast majority of being good, whether it be a sport or weightlifting or writing or anything, is just doing a small handful of things really well. And then, you know, then you have that brings you above the majority of people in terms of skill and results. And then of course, if you want to, you know, okay, you want to become super at something, then that's where a lot of the other little random things can come into play. But you have to have those fundamentals, or the other stuff, the more quote unquote advanced stuff, just doesn't matter.
Oh, definitely. I think it comes back to being critical again as well, as people looking at the stuff they're doing, because the human mind is always going to look for an easier route, an easier option, and something,
a shinier widget.
Yeah, a shinier widget. And you and me are both still looking for that. But we have a massive bullshit radar and other people have a very small bullshit radar. We've developed our minds to be more critical. So it's not to say that we won't accept a great new theory, a great new product, great new technology, but we will do our due diligence on whatever comes out and make sure it's backed and rational. And I just want other people to do more of that rather than looking at the shiny objects, because the shiny objects are literally 5-10%ers. There's nothing that is going to be more than 5 or 10%.
Yeah, and that's probably high. I mean, a lot of them are very, very small. Yeah, I think that, you know, and also just looking, and this is my experience with speaking with thousands of people that are kind of in my orbit, where the majority of the people that read my books and follow my websites and whatever, they're not trying to make fitness their life. They're not trying to be they're not trying to be a professional bodybuilder. They're not trying to be a professional physique competitor. And really, like in a lot of these people's cases, they don't even need to know more than, you know, they could read a book of mine and maybe 10 or 15 articles, and for their goals to build muscle, they want to get into a good body fat range. You know, they want to look good, they want to feel good, but they don't want to obsess over it. You don't need to know, like you could learn everything you need to know in 2 days, really.
Yeah.
In terms of diet and training, and literally never read another thing ever again, and just go do that stuff. Understand how to set your diet up, understand how to set your weightlifting programs up, and so you don't kill yourself, and so you get a good return on your time in the gym, and just do that. And within a year, you have more or less the body you want, and you know you can still enjoy it and work at it. But I think there's something to be said for it doesn't matter if it's my stuff, it could be your stuff, but you understand what I'm saying, that it could be a couple days of studying and you go apply that. And if you never knew another thing, you could be that person in the gym at some point where people come up to you and they're like, how do you have that body? How did you do that? And you're like, well, I don't know. I read like a few hundred pages of stuff and I've just been doing it for like 5 years and that's about it.
100%. I've got a podcast episode 117 on my show, and I say, look, if you want to know how to set up a diet for life, just follow this hour's worth of nutrition information and you could be done.
Yeah.
That's it. If your goals are just be happy, be healthy, look pretty decent, and sometimes that's all it takes. And again, it's just the fundamentals, man.
Yeah.
It's just the fundamentals.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. All right. So last point here is sleep. Why, which you had already touched on earlier, but the importance of sleep and importance of bedtimes and why not enough sleep sucks. And Because again,
Yeah.
like caffeine, we a lot of listeners, and I'm guilty of it as anybody else, abuse caffeine or can. I mean, I actually try not to. I tend to be pretty good on that. But sleep, I don't know. I tend to wake up after about 6 hours. I just don't like sleep more than that, period. So, that's just the way it's been for years and years now. But I know that's not, and I don't, like, that's fine for me. I don't know, but I know that's not normal, and that wouldn't be necessarily the normal, that wouldn't be the general recommendation. Maybe you see that research came out recently, the genetic polymorphism that some people have, where some people sleep 2 hours a night and they've done it their entire life and it has no negative effects on them. There's a genetic thing in play. I don't know, maybe I can't sleep that well. That would kill me, but.
That is a minimal amount of people. I'm similar. I'll sleep 6.5 hours and my body just wakes up. I'm done. That's all I need. And that's kind of great, because if I slept 9 hours, well, I'd get a hell of a lot less shit done.
I'd be so mad if I had to sleep so long.
Yeah. The thing that people just need to understand is that sleep does literally affect everything, like physiologically. Like if people, and this is a big thing, people that struggle with cravings, if you don't sleep enough, it plays havoc with your blood glucose levels, your hunger signals. When I've had a bad night's sleep, it's the only time I crave something sweet. And usually I don't have a sweet tooth at all, but your body will just look to try and get more energy.
It also messes with leptin and ghrelin. Like it makes your body say, "Give me food now."
Oh, exactly. And I could just literally eat all day when I sleep. And it doesn't help that I've got an ex-fat man living inside me. I used to be an obese man, so he wants to eat cake. Trust me. Sleep's then going to affect your workout. If you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to feel as good in your work life. And this is something that I think people don't take enough time to appreciate, is how much it affects your family and your loved one's environment. Like if you're tired, you're agitated with each other, you're short with each other, you don't enjoy your relationships, you don't spend time, you might go out for dinner and you want to go home early. Like this factors into your relationships so much. And I know that, when I go around, my family's for dinner, if I'm not on my ball, I'm not as enjoyable to be around. And no one wants to be that guy. This is why we live life, right? To get the best out of what we do, family, love, that kind of stuff. So it's really, really important. So I'm really dogmatic about sleep. Like 10 o'clock on the clock, I'm like, to my girlfriend, I'm like, right, I'm up to bed. You can stay and watch TV if you want, but I'm kind of gone. We'll wind down. We'll always be asleep by 10:30 at the latest, kind of thing, because I know how much it affects the next day. If I stay up late, that means I'm going to get up late. It means I'm not going to get as much work done. I don't want to work late because I want to go and enjoy myself. I want to go to the gym. I want to enjoy myself later. So it all rumbles into one. And, a lot of the time there isn't anything, unless you're going out, there's nothing good happening past 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And nothing that can't be recorded on TV now. We've all got recordable box sets. Put it on record, watch it at the weekend. But be in bed for 10, please.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I agree on all points. It's one of those things that's easy, just how it's easy to ingest, to consume too much caffeine. It's just easy. It's have another coffee, so it's easy to cut back on sleep. It seems, hey, I'll just stay up 30 minutes later. But yeah, the effects are cumulative. And for me, I start to feel that, like, if I sleep 5 hours, which I don't intentionally do, rarely ever, but sometimes I just don't, I don't know if you've had that. I'll get to bed and I'm just like not very tired. And I'm like, fuck, this is not going to be a good night's sleep. I can just feel it. You know what I mean? I just feel it. I just like something's off. And then I wake up in the middle of the night or whatever. But it's just, if I were feeling like that every day, and I know a lot of people do. I mean, you look at the research on sleep, it's like ridiculous. It's like 30-something% of people, at least here in the United States, this was like as of 2010, I think, reported falling asleep like in the middle of the day, just like sitting at their desk, falling asleep, or falling asleep while driving, which is obviously dangerous as shit.
Yeah.
That's bad. I don't even get that tired. If I sleep 5 hours, I've done that several days in a row. I don't get to the point where I'm falling asleep. I just don't feel so great throughout the day. Like that's severe sleep deprivation.
Yeah, that's chronic adrenal fatigue. And if you're in that place, like that's not a good place to be in. That means your body is in, and that will lead to chronic fatigue as well. People that can just literally fall asleep anywhere. And I've known people. I remember coaching my first guy who did this, and he fell asleep in the consultation.
Shit.
I'm like, I just put him. He was in that much of a relaxed state, or as relaxed as he's ever going to get, and just fell asleep. And he's like, yeah, I do it all the time. I'll get to lunchtime and I'll have to pull over in a lay-by and go to sleep. And I'm like, dude, that's not normal.
Yeah, that's bad.
And this is why I value sleep so much. Like, if I sleep well, my productivity the next day is literally double.
Yeah.
It's just astronomically different. And as someone who's self-employed, like, my income is related to what I put in.
Yeah. And no one's there to tell you. You got to get up. You got to get in front of that computer and do it. No one's going to tell you. Like, it's easy just to be like, oh, well, today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Dude,
productivity is everything to me.
Yeah, same. I was just driving home the other day, and there was a dude, lights green, he's not going. I'm next to him, so I'm driving by. I look over, and it's an old guy, either passed out, like, or something, right? I was like, is this guy asleep? And so I slowed down, and someone's honking behind him, and nothing's happening. I'm like, dude, did this guy have a heart attack? So I turn around, because I'm going to go and see, like, is this guy fucking dead? Like, what is going on? He was pretty old. And someone ran up to the car and was, like, tapping on his window, and he was asleep. But he was the guy, not even a horn blasting woke him up. Like, somebody had to go and, like, bang on his window. Like, is this guy, do I need to call 911? What is going on?
Wow. Jeez.
Florida, that's bad. Florida drivers are so bad. It's just a known thing here.
Gee, hope the guy made it home.
Yeah, no, he woke up and he drove off. I'm like, holy, that guy's on the road, dude. He's like,
yeah, I know.
What the fuck?
Not following him.
All right, so cool. That's everything we had on the agenda. I think it's a good length too. So yeah, I appreciate you. It's always fun talking with you. I appreciate people that like you, that you're fun to talk to and you know what you're talking about. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you and your work?
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks for getting me on after you came on my show, which was really cool. My name's Ben Coomber, Coomber. People can find me all over the internet if they search Ben Coomber. My show on iTunes is #1 in the UK, health and fitness. We've done 155 episodes so far. So if you put in Ben Coomber Radio into iTunes or whatever podcast doodah you use, then you will find me, download me, listen to one of the shows. Hey, maybe even download the show that me and Mike did and get that as your first listen. And then otherwise on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I am Ben Coomber. But if that bedazzles you, if you hit bencoomber.com, you will find everything that will link to my stuff there.
Cool. Awesome. And what do you have coming up? Like, what are your projects you have on your plate right now?
My big project that keeps revolving is I run an online education course. We have an intake every 6 months. We take a big group of people. We take them through a year to 2 years worth of learning on nutrition. It's a full-blown certification. So I do a lot of education.
I didn't even know
trainers. That. Dude, catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at your stuff, but I didn't realize it's that long. Actually, that's what I didn't know.
Yeah, the first bit's two months, which is like a foundation level. Then there's a year's learning, which is very practical, very hands-on, very in-depth. And then there's a 10-month advanced level for the true geek, but that's really tough stuff. You got to be ready for that. And then I've just brought out a couple of books and stuff. But if people head on over to bencoomber.com, it will link everywhere. So if you want to geek out on my work, please do head on over and have a look. And, again, after this show, hit me and Mike up on Twitter, start a conversation, tell us what you thought of the show. I love to hear about people. Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks again for taking the time, and we'll have to do it again. We'll come up with a reason to do another one.
Sure.
All right, man.
Enough reason to run.